Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good afternoon. Welcome back to WOL Radio. We're coming up on a break. We got to check the traffic real soon. But let me ask you this question while we get ready, with the traffic people get ready with their report. Why is it so difficult for us why are we so divided as a people? Why, I don't expect us to be all on one page on everything that we do. All one monolithic, because we're just different people. But on certain issues, I think, example, this weekend when this guy used the N-word on TV, we had 2 or 3 brothers running to his defense. You would not see that in any other ethnic group. Why is it we just have these other folks who just go left on us all the time? And I want to get your thought on that. But we got to take the break. Does he have a chance to respond? The drummers are telling me we got to respond. Anyway, I'll let you respond on the other side because we got to check the traffic. Traffic's really bad right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's mentor. That's what she said. His name is Neely Fuller Jr. The number to call to speak to him is 800-450-7876. And before we left for the break, I was asking him the question, why it seems so difficult for us as a people to come together? Why so much divisiveness? I'm just wondering if it's based in the racism, white supremacy context. So Neely Fuller Jr., help us understand this.
Well, in the system of racism, one of the first things you do if you're going to conquer people and have people under your conquest for infinite number of years, you have to keep them confused, and which means you have to have them always have a different viewpoint about what they are dealing with, and that's one of the first things you want to do if you're talking about longevity in setting up a system of mistreating people over an infinite period of time. In other words, by infinite meaning, as long as you want to keep dominating and mistreating the people. So you try to set up a system that's going to be long-winded, that's going to last as long as you want it to last. So what are the principles for doing that? If you're not going to be having to actually stand over them every day with a gun or some type of threat of violence or sudden death. So you work on their minds. So work on their minds by doing what? By scientifically seeing to it that they have a difference of opinion about their plight. And the more differences you have, the more confusion you have. And the more confusion you have, you can always exploit people who are confused. Take, for instance, if there are 10 people in a room and there's one person who knows where the fire exit is and everybody else is confused about where the fire exit is, and the fire bell goes off, the fire alarm goes off, that one person is the most powerful person in the room. Why? Just because that person knows where the fire exits are, and the rest of the people don't. So you just keep it that way. Keep the rest of them just, stumbling all over each other, screaming, yelling at the smoke, punching each other out, doing a number of things, turning over furniture and whatnot. But you can be calm because you know where the exit is, and all you have to do is just say, everybody follow me. And everybody will. Why? Because you're the most knowledgeable person about what's going on. You know where the fire exit is. And the white supremacists make sure that they know where the fire exits are because they take down all the signs and they also put up the signs and they also make the exits if there's going to be any at all in any situation. This is what you do when you're a conqueror. It's a very simple formula. And what do you do about it? You realize that. And you also realize that that's going to continue. See, that you can't wish that away. That will continue. So since it's going to continue, what you do is do the best that you can by doing what? Revealing the truth. That's the best you can do. And asking questions. How is truth revealed in any circumstance? By anybody, anywhere. By questions and answers. So if a person says, well, there's nothing wrong with using the N-word. Why is everybody getting upset about that? And the person who is talking is black, then you do what? You don't argue. You ask questions. You say, okay, who should use it, when, where, under what circumstances, and, and just through that process, you will find, almost like magic, the answers will come to the surface. And out of all those answers, maybe thousands of answers, the correct one will rise to the surface if you just keep at it. That's the procedure. I always say black people shouldn't argue with each other about anything. All you have to do once the argument breaks out, the science, which is what I try to write about, the science of compensatory logic, counter-racist logic, is questions and answers, because these are universal laws. So you just immediately, once the argument breaks out about whether you should or shouldn't do this or that or say this or that, just say, okay, let's go with your viewpoint. Let's go all the way with it and see where it takes us. And so you just go into the question and answer mode. And the correct answers will gravitate to the surface. They always have, all down through history. That's whether you're having a difference of opinion about the use of the so-called N-word, or if you're going to the moon and back. It always starts and ends with questions and answers. And the correct
well, let me interrupt you and ask you this, Neely Fuller Jr.
To the surface.
Right. Let me interrupt you and ask you this then. The people who are putting out the misinformation or divisiveness, do they know? Is it conscious or subconsciously? Are they doing it deliberately to cause that confusion that you mentioned?
Sometimes people are paid to cause the confusion in the system of white supremacy, and so you take that into account too. And you don't hold it against the people who are being paid, because they say, "Hey, I got to get paid. You're not paying me nothing, so I'm going to the highest bidder." And see, and getting angry about that just makes the situation worse. So you just let the person do whatever they're going to do. I will repeat, all problems, without exception, are solved throughout the entire universe through the process of questions and answers. That's the one thing we haven't tapped into consistently. Everybody asks questions every now and then, and seek answers every now and then. We all do it every day. We have questions. We come into the world asking questions, and we through the process of interactions between people and things, you leave here asking questions. And so that's just the nature of the universe. We need to tap into universal laws, and once we do that, because whatever created the universe created laws of the universe. So we need to tap into universal laws called logic, cause and effect. Cause and effect. Everything is cause and effect. We, as people in general, and particularly subject peoples like black people all over the world, have not tapped into logic. We use a lot of emotion to express ourselves. And emotions do serve a purpose, but emotions have to be connected to what? Have to be connected to logic. Otherwise, it's just a lot of live wire that's not attached to a motor. And live wire not attached to a motor is just thrashing around all over the place. You get a lot of noise and a lot of sparks, and everybody panics and whatnot because it's live wires not attached to anything. Emotions are live wires, but you have to attach emotions to logic. And once you attach emotions to logic, it's all about cause and effect. And it's all about what? When it comes to, in a practical sense, it's all about people asking questions and getting answers to the questions. Because the nature of the universe is, when you put a question out there, the answer starts gravitating toward the source of the question. I think that can be proven over and over again. By scientists prove it all the time. They're seeking answers. And how do you seek an answer? By raising a question. And if you keep raising the same question over and over and over again, the answer starts gravitating toward the source of the question. We see that demonstrated all the time. but I don't think we think about it seriously, and we need to. That's a part of.
Let me jump in here and ask you this then. How do you know you're asking the appropriate question? How do you know that you're asking the right question?
When you're not getting the correct answers. And when you're not getting the correct answers, that'll show up somewhere down the line. Just like if you're trying to install electricity and whatnot. And that's why you have codes, electrical codes. That's why I call what I do the compensatory counter races code, because there are certain laws of the universe. I'm trying to tap into those. I'm not saying that I'm good at it, but I'm trying to become perfect at it. I'm a long ways from doing that. And the reason I know I'm a long ways from doing it, in answer to your question, is because the problem hasn't been solved. I set out years ago to try to come up with the formulas to solve the race problem. I'm still working on it. Why? Because I don't have all of the answers. I have some answers, but I can't even prove that my answers are the real answers. But there are some things that people have told me by reading the book that I have out, The Compensatory Code for Victims of Racism. They said they have tried some of the things, and it works. I say, that's the only way you know that is an answer. You try it, and if it works, then that's the answer. If it doesn't work, you better keep trying. It's Fuller, back to the drawing board, again and again and again and again, until you come up with something that works and works consistently every time, doesn't fail. That's what a code is, an electrical code, a plumbing code, a fire code, or a code to replace the system of racism with the system of justice, because these are laws of the universe. And doing what? Getting everything done, cause and effect. That's all it is. Very simple. Either something is done or it isn't. And because, and this is something that black people, and including myself, I'm including myself in that bunch, we have to become more and more conscious of. We have to become more logical. The white supremacists, when they made us into their slaves, they say, we got to...
Hang on a second, Mr. Fuller. We got to take a quick break here, folks. Interesting conversation with Neely Fuller Jr. Reach out to us at FM 95.9 and also on AM 1450. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. You know him as Dr. Welson's mentor. That's what she said. Number to call to reach him is 800-450-7876. And I always say when he's on the radio, you've got to listen very keenly, because he uses logic to bolster his argument. And for some, it takes a while for you to grasp it. I know it did for me, but finally I did get it. So don't be embarrassed if you don't get it right away. Understand what the system of racism and white supremacy is all about. Because he says all the time, if you don't understand it and everything that it entails, everything that you think you understand only serve to confuse you. Having said that, I'm going to let you, Neely Fuller Jr., finish what you were saying, but tell us if the race problem, as you said, we need to replace racism with a system of justice. Can we do that, black people, by ourselves, or do we have to have the other races in to solve this race problem?
Well, in order to have justice, you have to have a definition for the word justice. Some years ago, I kept asking people, what is the exact definition for the word justice? I never looked in Black's Law Dictionary. I had access to one once, and I missed looking it up at the time. The legal definition for the word justice. So I just asked a lawyer, someone that I knew, and I said, exactly what does the word justice mean? What is the definition for justice? I mean, a definition I can really work with. And because words have to have definitions. Words are tools, and every word should have a definition that you can understand, just like a tool. If you don't understand what a tool is, you're looking at a tool. Somebody says it's a tool, but you don't have any idea of what the tool is supposed to do. The tool isn't a tool. The tool isn't a tool. If you're looking at a tool, something that somebody says is a tool, and you're looking at it, but you don't know what it's supposed to do, then that tool, by logic, is not a tool to you. It's of no use to you. And a word is a tool. So therefore, you have to know what every word means. If you use the word liberation, if you use the word integration, if you use the word segregation, if you use the word empowerment.
We haven't lost him.
Hello?
We'll see if we can get him back. I think, have we lost him, Neely Fuller Jr.?
Hello?
May have dropped him. Anyway,
can
number to call to speak to him is 800-450-7876. Our guest, Neely Fuller Jr., was just telling us about words. And you got to make that connection, folks. As I mentioned earlier, you got to listen really keenly when Neely Fuller's on the radio. And he's been on quite a few times, and some people still don't really understand what racism, white supremacy is. They think they clue into the word supreme, and it's not really the key word. Dr. Wilson will explain it a different way, and she will tell you that if you anything that you do and it supports.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Six has some technical difficulties there. Again, Neely Fuller Jr., I'll let you finish your thoughts that you were saying.
Yes, when was I cut off? Because I was talking steadily.
Yeah, I think it was on my side, but go ahead. Because you were explaining about the code, and because I didn't hear it anyway, but go ahead.
Yes, but I don't know exactly where I was when I was cut off. I was talking about tools. Did you hear that part?
Yeah, we heard tools. Yeah, you can pick it up from there.
Okay. Well, words are nothing but tools. Tools are designed to do what? To accomplish a job. So if you're using words in such a way that it's not doing the job that you want done, you need to re-examine your tools. So get back to the word that we were talking about, and that's the word justice. That's the product we're supposed to be producing out of all of this. The end result of everything that black people are doing should not be to produce a thing called black pride. I mean, we were doing that for years and whatnot. That's okay, I guess, whatever that means, if you can define it. But is that an end result of everything that you're supposed to be doing? Because you can be proud and be locked up at the same time. I sometimes say, what's the difference between a silly slave and a dignified one? And the logical answer is, one is silly and one is dignified. So what? They're both slaves. So, you want to change your overall condition, not just walk around getting puffed up on a whole lot of hot air. Okay? And so what is our overall condition? We are victims of non-justice. That is it. So what you need is justice. So you got to define what justice is. And like I said earlier, and before I was cut off, I guess, that what is justice? And I tried to find that out some years ago. And then I was listening to, in 1994, I was listening to Larry King interviewing, I think it was Jerry Spence at that time. And Jerry Spence, I think, was a lawyer, and they were discussing, if I have it correctly, I don't like to misquote people, but they were discussing what exactly is justice. And they say justice doesn't really have a definition as such. Justice doesn't have a definition. And I'm thinking, what? Justice doesn't have a definition. How do you know when you got it? So I asked a lawyer a little while after that, and he said that justice is whatever the Supreme Court says it is, at least in the Northwestern Hemisphere. And in different other parts of the world, justice means something else. But black people always say, we want justice, we want justice. Well, first of all, if you're asking for something, you should be able to recognize it when you see it. Okay? So I came up with a compensatory definition. It took me quite a while, and I wanted one that was straight to the point and simple and also true and also logical. So it came up to be two parts. Justice, definition, compensatory definition, meaning making up for the definition that I didn't have. That's what the word compensatory means. Making up for something that you needed, but you didn't have it. So I made up a compensatory definition for the word justice about 30 years ago. And it was consisted of two parts. First, I had balance between people, but that didn't tell me much. I used that. But then I came up with something more concise that I think will stand the test of time until somebody comes up with another one, and I will adopt it. Because it's all a matter of compensation, coming up with your best product in doing anything. So it's two parts. Justice, definition, is, number one, guaranteeing no person is mistreated. That's what you put out here. That's part one. And number two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Underline the word constructive. See, because sometimes people want help, but the kind of help that they're asking for, somebody wants you to help them go out here and rob somebody on the street. See, you look at that word constructive. That's very important. Then you ask a question. Wait a minute. You want me to go out here with you and help you rob somebody? Some old lady on the bus stop? Some elderly person of their check? And you put a gun to their head and say, I'll kill you if you don't give me your money? And you want me to help you do that? Is that constructive? That's my question. Is that going to produce a constructive result among us needy black people? All of us in need. The lady that you're fixing to rob is in need. I'm in need. You're in need. All black people on the planet are in need. And this is what you want me to do to solve our problem? Is that constructive? The answer is what? Logically speaking, no. Then I ain't doing it. All right? I'm not going to help you to do that. Why? Because it doesn't produce a product called justice. That's why. And we're supposed to be more than anybody on this planet in the process of producing a product called justice, meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated ever, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And when you look at it logically speaking, when you look at all the people on the planet, the people with the darkest skin, what? Need the most help. So now if white people say they believe in justice, get on board with this by that definition. Since we don't have a concise and logical definition that's always abstract and argued by everybody, how about trying that definition? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the people who need help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Unquote.
800-450-7876. I know we're coming up on a break. Check the traffic real soon. But Neely Fuller Jr., you once said that we, as a people, you said we're too emotional, and then we talk too much. There are times where we just shouldn't have a conversation. We just should just shut up. Can you expound on that for us?
Well, talking too much depends on what you're saying. It's okay to talk endlessly. We need a lot of talk, but we want the talk to be productive. Productive of what? Of what we're trying to produce. Replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That should be the objective of everybody on the planet, white and non-white, if they believe in that product called justice. Because you can't have justice and racism on the same planet.
Right. Hold that thought right there. We got to check the traffic and weather together. I'll let you finish your thought on the other side. Folks, you too can join the conversation with Neely Fuller Jr. Reach out to us, 800-450-7876. Take your calls next. It's a big show. It rolls on from FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thank you for staying with us. And our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. We'll get back to him in a moment. Just want to tell you, coming up in the next few days, geopolitical analyst Craig Hewlett's going to be here. He's going to talk about the UK elections and the attacks in Manchester and London and how they all relate. Also, he's going to talk about Donald Trump, of course, and Putin and more. You get the picture. You know what Craig talks about. Also, a power talker and rapper actor, producer. David Banner is going to be here. He's going to reveal his latest project he's going to lay on us. Our guest right now, though, is Neely Fuller Jr. And as again, I tell you all the time, when you hear Neely Fuller Jr. on the radio, you've got to listen close. It's not, you got to be really locked into what he's saying, because he uses logic to prove his points. And before we left for the traffic and weather together update, we were asking him a question I actually asked him was about us as a people, because he once said that we talk too much. We sometimes we just need to shut up. We just need to talk to each other. Because we're not talking, we're not saying anything. So Neely Fuller Jr., I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying before we left for the traffic and weather update.
Well, talk is a form of communications. It depends on what you're saying. And the title, the supplementary title of the textbook for victims of racism that you can get by going to producejustice.com is what? It's called A Textbook Workbook for Thought, Speech, and/or Action for Victims of Racism. That's the supplementary title of the book, the Compensatory Counter-Racist Code. And the first thing you have there is thought. I think it's an old cliche. I didn't invent this cliche. Think before you speak. And, you get pulled over by an officer and whatnot, you do some thinking rather than start, running your mouth. Let them do the talking, okay? Let them do the talking for a little while you do some thinking. Thinking about what? Thinking about what you're going to say if you say something. Because anything that you say can what? Can and will be held against you in a court of law. So you don't want a whole lot of MFs and whatnot. You do some thinking. Be quiet. Be quiet. Do some thinking. Listen to what's being said. And even if, like some people report that sometimes things that are being said are pretty harsh. What are you doing, boy? Where do you think you're going? You think this is a speed race or something? You know how much time, how fast you were going? Now, that's a question. And here's the procedure according to the code. If you're asked a question, answer the question straight and to the point. You do that. If you are told to do something, or if you're called a name, according to what I've written, what's the logical procedure? Say absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Listen for the question. If you're not being asked a question, you say nothing. And it depends on the nature of the question. You're cautious about what you say when you answer the question. But you definitely don't say anything behind a statement, even if the statement is a series of name calling. Like we started off this program this evening talking about what? The N-word. If you're called the N-word, you don't start talking about your dignity and all that and your pride and whatnot. You just listen. Listen for the question. If the person asks you, or you want the N-word, then you give your opinion of what you should say about that, your logical opinion and whatnot. If I'm called by the N-word according to what I have written in the textbook, I don't have any problem with it, okay? And I have reasons I can, to tell you that, because I have given it a definition. See, but I will ask the officer, whomever it might be, maybe, first of all, I'll ask, do I have permission to ask a question? All right? And he might say, no. I mean, none of you boys or none of you N-word people supposed to ask questions. I'll ask the questions. Now, if he tells me that, then I'll just say, yes, sir. Proceed. That's it. See, be logical. Why? Because you're on a battlefield. This is not a conversation between, if the N-word is being used by a white person. This is not a little chat between friends. You're on a battlefield and you're in a losing position. Keep that in mind. Why? This battlefield is the entire world if you're black. Because the white supremacists run the entire world. I'm going to say that again. The white supremacists run everything worth running in the entire world, period. Now,
All right, let me stop you there and interrupt you there, Neely Fuller Jr. Let me stop it right there, because one of our callers, he mentioned that you said that, and he says he disagrees because he thinks the Chinese hold their own, and the Chinese run, at least part of Asia, that part of Asia, and some parts of Africa too. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So because I had no response. So what response would you give him?
You can't have white supremacy and any other supremacy anywhere on the planet at the same time, which means the people who use the term white supremacy, including me, for sure me, are not telling the truth. See, everything in counter-racist science has to be based on truth, not how anybody feels. Black people always talk about how they feel about everything, but we are not a people who are known to be logical about anything that's worth being logical about. We are not known for that. We're the laughing stock of the entire world when it comes to logic. That's why we are the greatest beggars in the world of anybody, because we are not logical people. And talking about what we were 2,000 years ago won't help, because we don't use it now. Everything is about now, not about what happened with our ancestors 40 trillion years ago. And there's something I say about ancestors too, but I could get to that some other time. But I'm saying, sticking to the subject, we have to be logical people about everything, every minute. And every word that you use has to be based on logic, not some words, every word. You don't utter a word ever to anybody that's not assembled in a way that is going to come to a logical conclusion, and that logical conclusion should be something that's going to solve a problem in the best possible way. Everything that you say should be about problem solving, not problem making. In fact, one part of the code, the counter-racist code, is solve problems without making any. And black people are not, we don't have a reputation in 2017 worldwide for being problem solvers. Nobody flocks to black people looking to solve problems. But everybody, just about, including other black people, run from other black people. Why? To keep from having a problem. So what does that say about us? Are we notorious for being problem solvers? Are we known? Are we famous for being problem solvers? Now, the minute that question is asked, and that is a question, what is the truthful answer? The truthful answer is no. We're not problem solvers. No one flocks to black people saying, I got a problem. And I know that black people, when I ask them how to solve the problem, I know for sure I can count on them always to be able to solve a problem in a logical manner, in the best possible manner. No, we don't have that reputation. You start talking about problem solving, everybody looks around for somebody else. They don't look at a black person at all. Yet we will walk around bragging about being black and bragging about what that's supposed to mean without ever putting any ingredients about. With all this talk, since we're talking about how much we talk, we have talked and talked and talked for several decades about how great we are. Great at what? Problem solving? Because that's what we're supposed to be doing here on the planet. Solving problems in the most logical, constructive manner. All right? Or do we have a worldwide reputation for that? No. Many black people, thousands of us, I would say most of us, we'll look around and see nothing but an ocean of black people around us, and what do we think about doing? We better get away from here. I'm a black person surrounded by black people. I don't see nothing but black people. I don't see any white people. I don't see anybody but black people. So what do I think about doing? I better get in a boat and cross that Mediterranean Sea, because ain't nothing going to happen here that's going to be pleasant. Around all these black people, doing all this bragging about ancestors and all like that, ain't a one of them can solve a single problem. But they know how to make a bunch of them. A bunch of them for what? For whom? For other black people. And I am going to get in a boat, and I'm going somewhere where there's some white folks, so I can do what? Get some problems solved. That's what. Now, truth be told, that's where we are in 2017. Man, when I was in the hood, man, bullets flying, and wasn't nothing but pure hell. Couldn't get along with my relatives. Nothing but complaints. Nothing but complaints. Nothing pleasant. Can't have a barbecue down the street without something getting out of order, without a problem being made, maybe 5 or 6 dozen problems within the first 15 minutes, if not within the first 2 or 3 hours. Got to get away from here. I got to move again. I can't stay here no longer. Grandmother's saying, I can't stay here no longer. I can't even stay around my own children who are black just like me. My grandchildren, they're driving me crazy. All kinds of unpleasant things are happening. I got to get away from here. Get away from here and go where, Granny? We don't say it, but we mean I got to go somewhere where some people can solve some of my problems. Well, where is that, Granny? Around some white folks. Tell the truth, folks. We need to stop jiving. This is 2017. And excuse me for using an old-fashioned ghetto word, jive. Jiving, there was a blues song in the 1940s say jiving is lying. And that's what it is. We need to stop lying to the world and lying to ourselves, because everybody can see through the lie. We can't get away with that lie no more. I don't care how much we, tattoo, hairdo, high five, and spread jive. I don't care what we do in that line. It ain't working. It's not working. This is 2017. We're 17 years into a new millennium, and we are acting like this is 1920 or worse. In a lot of ways, we black people, when you compare our conduct on a day-to-day basis among ourselves, it hasn't improved substantially from what it was in 1920 in a lot of features.
Hang on a second, Mr. Fuller. We got to take a quick break here, give our stations a chance to identify themselves at the top of the hour. When we come back, we got a bunch of folks from all across the country who want to speak to you. You can reach them at 800-450-7876 on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. Thank you for joining us, folks. Or if you just getting off work, 6 o'clock on the East Coast. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. He's got a book out called The Code. That's a short word, short title, I should say. We'll tell you more about the book later. But a bunch of folks want to talk to you, Neely Fuller Jr., so we're going to go at it. 800-450-7876. And if you can shorten up on the answers, I'd appreciate it. Let's go to line 2. Bert's calling you from D.C. Bert, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Hey, thanks, Carl, for taking my call. I totally agree with Neely Fuller that we should be constantly asking the question, why was it necessary when it comes to the negative things that we have been conditioned to in the entire world. I don't want to offend anyone, but I know the babies or the kids, the minute they learn to speak, they ask us that question constantly, why? So I've got 3 questions I'd like to propose that, Brother Fuller or anyone in the audience, try to answer for me, because I keep asking this question constantly and I never get a satisfactory answer. And the first question is, why was it necessary that back in the days of slavery for the slave master to say it was illegal for us as black people to learn to read and write? The second question that I keep asking people is, why was it necessary for a person like Governor Wallace or during that era for them to stand in front of a university campus and say, nope, we're not going to allow any black person to attend this university, or in cases certain schools? And the final question is, why was it necessary for the banks to create a redlining system to prevent us from gaining the kind of financial resources that we would eventually use for our improvement. And I'll hang up and listen to the question on the radio. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Bert. Neely Fuller Jr., you got the first question?
It's just one answer to all three questions. In order to maintain the system of white supremacy. These are necessary things. Cause confusion in what? All areas of activity. Because like I said earlier in this program, when people are confused, they have to depend on people who are not confused. So the white supremacists use language to confuse people all the time, every day. You can't buy a car or buy a house without being confused. You can't do anything if you're a person of color anywhere in the world under the system of white supremacy without some kind of confusion being handed to you on a silver platter. See, the platter will be beautiful, the thing that they handed to you in, but they keep that. And whatever was on that platter is loaded with poison, all right? And the poison is designed to do what? Confuse the mind. That's the kind of poison they put out. And they do it mostly by talking. That's why the people who are called in the Northwestern Hemisphere years ago, the people who were designated as called red people, people of color, by the white supremacists, those people said what about the white supremacists? They speak with forked tongue. Say one thing, mean another. If you listen to them, if they keep talking and whatnot, they will talk you out of house and home. They're expert talkers. Like I sometimes call it Pocahontasism. And if they can't talk to one black person, they'll talk to another. They'll try to find the weakest one. Their record shows this. And this is not anything that Neely Fuller is saying, except I'm repeating what was taught to me. By whom? Directly, indirectly, by people who believed in white supremacy. Many of them. I won't say all, but I'll say the most powerful and smartest ones. They taught me about what? The Indian maiden called Pocahontas. And say, you read this, boy, and you learn it. What we did to people of color, along with what we did to you. Read this. And even though you're reading it, and I'll tell you about it, I told you about your slave history because I got control of all the books. So, you couldn't learn it any other way. I killed off the people who were actually, the first ones. And so I inherited you. You are the illegitimate offspring. That's what the white supremacists tell us every day. You are my illegitimate offspring because I killed off your parents. I killed off the parents of all of the non-white people on the planet until they did what? Until their offspring learned my ways. But I will only teach them enough of my ways to their own detriment. I'll teach them how to fight each other and all of that. I won't teach them anything that makes them more powerful than me or as powerful as I am. Because I don't believe in justice. I believe in dominating and mistreating people. That's why I'm a white supremacist. Domination and mistreatment of people. That's what white supremacy means. It doesn't mean just, I'm trying to, save myself as a white person, as a species and all like that. That's what they'll say. But see, no one was chasing them down, insisting that you give your woman to me. The white supremacists are doing that to other people, chasing other people all over the place and saying, give your women to me. I'll take them. And don't you touch mine, but I will take all of yours and run through every one of them that I can and produce offspring and then make slaves out of them and have them confused because I will always tell them that some of you are my offspring and get you to fight the other ones, the light skin against the dark skin, and come up with all different kind of religions and have you fighting about that when I am the most powerful of all religions. There's no religion more powerful than the religion of white supremacy. Now, a lot of people will say, well, where'd you get that from, Fuller? I had to come up with that one because that's the truth. Compare any religion, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, Confucianism, Hinduism, with the religion of white supremacy, there's absolutely no comparison. There's never been a religion as powerful as the religion of white supremacy. So let's look at the word religion. Because somebody will say, white supremacy isn't a religion. Yes, it is. What is a religion? Getting the words again. Words are very important. A religion is anything that people believe in and back up their belief with action. You've got to have those two components. Otherwise, you don't have a religion. You have some people who will say, and I have heard this, oh, I'm a Catholic, but I don't practice it. How can you be something that you don't practice? I'm an airplane pilot, but I don't fly airplanes. I can't be that. I'm a carpenter, but I don't work with wood. How can you be a carpenter and you don't do what you say that you do? Because you're not doing it. And religion is the same thing. If you don't practice your religion, you don't have that religion. That's a contradiction. That's not the truth. And everything in science and in counter-racist science got to be based on truth. That's why I tell black people, just to make yourself feel good, don't pump yourself up on a lie. Don't go around talking about, that you don't believe, because you say you don't believe in white supremacy, that white supremacists don't tell you what to do, and you're walking around on this planet as black as can be and saying that the white supremacists don't tell you what to do. I run my own business. They don't run my business. I run my own business. Well, stop and think. Stop and think and ask yourself, are you really telling the truth? No, these people don't tell me what to do. That's why I'm where I am today. Well, where are you today? If you're black and anywhere on this planet, exactly where are you today? Anywhere on this planet, if you're not under the system of white supremacy. That's the question. I started off this program like I start off and continue in all programs because it's a scientific fact. All problems are solved through the process of what? Questions and answers. So when a black person says, no white supremacists tell me what to do, oh, then the question is, does anybody tell you what to do, ever? And if so, who, when, where? And then go through the 9 areas of activity. Does anybody tell you what to do in economics? Does anybody tell you what to do and what you better not do in education? Does anybody tell you what to do and what not to do in entertainment, in labor, in law, in politics, in religion, in sex, in war? And if the answer you give me, and you're black, is that nobody tells me what to do. I'm my own boss. I got my own business and everything. You need to stop and think about what you're actually saying. I'm educated. Who gave you your education? Right there.
Neely Fuller Jr., we got to take our last look at the traffic and weather. Folks, you too could join this conversation, interesting conversation. Neely Fuller Jr., and I keep telling you, you got to listen very keenly to what he's saying as he relates about the system of racism and white supremacy. Again, the number to call to reach him is 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls next, right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. I thank you for staying with us and our guest, Neely Fuller Jr. He says if you don't understand the system of racism and white supremacy and everything that it entails, then everything that you think you understand will only serve to confuse you. The number to call and speak to him is 800-450-7876. And again, you've got to listen really keen to what he's saying. Let's go out to Long Beach, California. Johnny's waiting for us. He's on line 3. Johnny, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Thank you, Carl. How you doing, Mr. Fuller? And the truth is what is. I got that phrase from you a long time ago in Ted Gilday, and it's true. The truth is what is. But, Mr. Fuller, everything you said thus far about logic and reason, that's how I approach life, okay? It gets me in trouble because when people feel as though you're interrogating them, they say things they're not adding up. And that's all it is. It's about having the ability to think about things and see if they're making it logical or reasonable. And I agree with you 100% with that. And that's how come I would really like to talk to you off air one time because, I mean, you enlighten me. You got my mind just flashing. You're somebody I can learn a lot from, because, and even, with the way people are. Because a lot of our young kids are not going towards high tech, and that's the way we need to gear some people towards high tech. They'll be amazed at how much they already know that they already have the ability. And it's like there was a guy, one of the callers. It's like the scariest thing to white supremacy is that a black person that does come for a reason and logic and has the ability to think, it scares them.
Right, Johnny, put in a question for him so he can respond. I got a bunch of folks who want to talk to him.
I was just sharing. That's all to let them know. It's like about the truth is what it is, and it's like, and I agree with everything you said thus far. I just wanted to let them know. It's like about what we can do for people today. That's all. All right, thanks, man.
All right, thank you, John. 800-450-7876. Leo's calling from the district. He's on line 4. Leo, you on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yes, good afternoon, Brother Carl, and good afternoon to the elder, Neely Fuller. Okay, I'm a Garveyite, meaning subscribe to the teachings of Marcus Garvey. And I want to ask the elder how you feel about Garveyism. Because I believe that Marcus Garvey explained what the problem is, which is white supremacy, and he also gave the solution to it. And it's not before you answer. When you answer, I want him also to address this. Marcus Garvey, in one instance, made the following statement. The Negro is his own worst enemy. How do you feel about that statement?
All right. Thanks, Leo. Neely Fuller Jr.
I want to understand the question. How do I feel about Marcus Garvey and his philosophy?
Yeah, that was the first one. Yeah, and his philosophy about the Negro is his own worst enemy.
Oh, well, he said what he said, so people should evaluate what he said. I'm duty-bound to say that because I can't criticize something called VGQ that I describe in the book. It's called Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Now, if Marcus Garvey said that the Negro is his own worst enemy, I cannot say anything against what Mr. Marcus Garvey said, and he's not here to defend himself. So anyone who disagrees with that, or if they agree with it, well, they can say so or disagree with it or whatever. But I am duty-bound under VGQ, means Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Mr. Marcus Garvey was a victim of racism, so he can say anything he wants to about race, racism, or counter-racism, just like I'm doing. See, in other words, we're all equal as victims of racism. If you're a person of color, you can say, in fact, you have a duty to say anything that you want to say about your victimization. So if Mr. Marcus Garvey said what he said, then only thing I can say, according to what I've written, and this is what's in my book, when a black person says anything about race, racism, or counter-racism, the only thing that I can say if I am asked to make a remark about what another black person said is that he said what he said. Or if it's a case of a lady, a black lady, she said what she said. If you quote Mary McLeod Bethune or Coretta Scott King or Dorothy Height, and you say, well, she said this and she said that and she said the other and whatnot, The only thing that I am duty bound to say, if someone asks me, what do I say about what this other black person said? Now, here's where the code really kicks in. I mean, because, I say always codify everything so you get the best result. The only thing that I can really say, regardless of what I'm thinking and whatnot, I just can't say what I'm thinking. I say what really works best is that if you're talking about what Mrs. Coretta Scott King said, the only thing that I can say, I'm duty bound to say, oh, Miss King said what she said. And that's the only thing I can say. See, now what does this do? This has the function of keeping black people from going at each other and cutting each other down, because that can happen real easy. And this black people get into a big circular argument among themselves, what I call barbershop talk, that goes nowhere because they're all screaming and shouting at each other. And meanwhile, the white supremacists are still doing their thing. So that shuts that down. Some years ago, someone asked me about a very outspoken black person. I won't mention his name, but they asked me about something that he said on the radio that was very controversial at that time. And I said, oh, that's easy. He said what he said. Now, what does that mean? Is that the best thing to say? Because everything about counter-racist science is that when you are called on to say something, you give the best possible response that can ever be given by anybody. And that should be a part of everybody's code. We got to become super scientific. I mean, suppose each one of us, and certainly I'm not that way, I'm trying to get that way, that every time anybody said anything to us, our response, each and every individual black person on the planet, would be a response that would be the best possible response that anybody in the whole history of the world could ever give. And that, when I say history, I don't mean just past history. I mean in the future history. In the same circumstance, and you're presented with a question that you have supposed to answer for, that every black person right now in 2017, when you're asked a question, you are supposed to be given the best possible answer to that question that anybody will ever give for the next 10 million years. That calls for what? That calls for some thinking. So I hope that I'm giving the best possible answer to this particular question. What do I have to say about what Mr. Marcus Garvey said? And I say he said what he said. Straight and right to the point. And I say I couldn't give a better answer. A better answer in order to do what? In order to produce the product that we're trying to produce. So you don't ever lose sight of the goal that you're trying to achieve. And along the route of achieving that goal is you don't do anything that's going to cause more conflict between black people than you already have, because you've got plenty of conflict. And the one thing I don't want ever is to have an argument with a black person about anything, or really have an argument with a white person about anything. I just want to follow logic and come to a conclusion right quick that's the best possible conclusion that anybody, white or non-white, will ever come to in every move that I make, in everything that I say, and in everything that I do. And I call it the principle of trying to establish what? Universal man and universal woman. That's what we should be aiming for. A universal man and a universal woman. They have never existed in recorded history. And what would a universal man and a universal woman be? That is, a person who always, without fail, does the best possible thing in every circumstance that can possibly be done by anybody, past or present or future. And you know what? That calls for a whole bunch of new thinking altogether. And that's where we need to be. This is 2017. We're 17 years into a new millennia. But we are using a lot of the type of so-called logic that we have used that has failed so far to do the job that needs doing. So we need a code that when you do it, it always works. Works how? Works for the most constructive effect. That's how. Just that. Nothing short of that. Every black person on the planet. So that when people point us out in the future, and I would say in the near future, we can do it. We can codify it. I have confidence we can do it. People would say, here comes a universal man and a universal woman. And you say, well, what does that mean? See, that's a person that when you approach them any kind of way, when you interact with them any kind of way, the result is going to always be super constructive, because that's the kind of people that they came to be overnight. Overnight. They went from being super slaves to universal man and universal woman. People who...
Right. Hold that thought right there, Neely Fuller Jr. We got to take another quick break. 800-450-7876 gets you in to speak to our guest. We'll take your phone calls next as the big show rolls on from the capital city on 95.9 FM and 1450 AM. WOL, where information is power. Thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. Dr. Wilson says that was her mentor. Number to call to reach him is 800-450-7876. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. Got to listen really keenly to what he's saying, because he uses logic to back up every point that he makes. 800-450, again, 7876. Those are the numbers. Let's go to Ontario, Canada. Rick's waiting for us. He's on line 5. Rick, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Hi. Carl?
Yeah, can you get close to that phone for us, Rick?
Okay, is that better? Okay,
yeah, that's better.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Carl, I beg to differ with you. I don't think a person has to listen really carefully or in an unaccustomed way. You know, we were created out of logic and math. And so, in other words, it's a part of our makeup. What has happened is we've learned not to think that way. We've learned to not believe our lying eyes. That's simply, to break it down in the real simple terms, that's the way I see it. I'm so glad that Mr. Fuller made the comment. And it's one I'm in full concurrence with. That we spend far too much time talking about what we were. And nobody spends any time, or very few people, about what we want to become. Or simply what we want to just be today. You know, we're always trying to live into, making yesterday. And I don't have a question. I'll just tell you beforehand. Whenever you have to, just move me on to the next caller. But I think it's very important that people recognize the importance of history, and it is important. But history has a real main purpose, and that is to be able to look back and see what I've done wrong. When you go to get a house, the bank doesn't go and look and see where you paid your bills. They look to see where you haven't paid them, where you had a problem, where you lost your job, where your notes fell behind. And that's to say that's, you look at history in a way and say, well, we're not going to do that again. We're never going to get behind anything like the civil rights movement again, because even though some things happened, we did not progress. Claude Anderson was on your program a couple days ago, and he said that, our wealth is literally where it was in 1875. It's not increased 1 percentage point. That's a shame before God that we thinking men and women cannot produce even a cohesion. It doesn't even have to be an organization. Just the will to say, look, I want to help my brother because in doing so, or my sister, because I'm going to help myself. And you got a man like Mr. Fuller, I know he doesn't like to be called doctor, but you're a doctor in the true sense of the word, brother. And he comes on and he speaks in clear, plain language. But the thing is, people have to change. And that's what Marcus Garvey, by the way, did say that the Negro is his greatest problem. He said it in the Philosophy and Opinion of Marcus Garvey by Amy Jacques Garvey on page 177, so we can put that point to rest. So I'm only saying that we talk about the things, you hear these cliches. Black people got to come together. We just got to come together. We're all one. We're not all one. We need to learn how to be one. And the code that Mr. Fuller speaks about is something that people can do independent of anybody else. If you just live by those standards, you will automatically gravitate to other people who, even if they don't understand or practice the whole thing, they'll practice enough of it where you can produce. So
Rick, let's give him a chance to respond to what you said, because you said you didn't have a question, but you did put a lot on the table. I thank you for your call. Neely Fuller Jr., you agree with what Rick said? He says, I guess the law of attraction is at work here.
No, I just simply say VGQ. He said what he said. See, everybody's opinion counts, even the people who disagree with me. I always say, if someone wants to disagree with me, white or non-white, I mean, step up to the plate, because it's not about Neely Fuller. It's about logic and problem solving. Logic used to solve problems. Race is a problem. Racism. Race is racism. It's just one race, and that's the white race. Now, that's a statement that could be controversial, okay? And people might want to argue about it and all like that. But I always say, that's a statement that I made, but is that statement true? Okay? That's the only thing you're seeking. Not trying to win an argument. You're trying to, first of all, find out what the truth about anything is. Because logic is supposed to be based on truth. Otherwise, it's what you call illogic. And anytime you steer away from truth, even what you call a feel-good lie, all right? And a lot of lies make you feel good. That's why a lot of us are on cocaine and heroin and all like that. That's a lie. That's a lie. It doesn't solve any problem, period. But it makes you feel like problems are being solved. And so the white supremacists are experts at spreading anything among people of color that's going to lead them to a feel-good situation where that so-called feel-good situation is not solving a problem. It's making a greater problem. And we have been trained, very carefully trained, to always go in that direction. Why? And it's logical, because we've been beaten down so much. We're just looking for any kind of instant relief, like anybody who's in pain. And the white supremacists understand that. That's why they inflict a lot of pain on us, and then they throw anything at us and say, this will help to relieve your pain, when it's actually adding to your problems. And we have to be aware of that. And to the best of our ability as individuals, because everything I've written in the code book is about individual action. We use this expression, and someone has said that that's what we do in the earlier part of this program. I mean, black people got to get together. Black people got to get together. Well, what do we actually mean? Here we're dealing with words again. What do we actually mean when we say get together? Do we mean physically grab hold of each other? Because a lot of us think that. That's why we do all this hugging. We do a lot of physical touching, high-fiving, and we got 15 or 20 different handshakes. It might take half a day to do some handshaking, okay? But what does that mean in functional terms when it comes to problem solving? Does it actually solve problems? Now, somebody might say, oh, yes. I was shaking hands with a fellow that I know the other day, and, we shook hands for about 3 hours. We spent about 3 hours just shaking hands. And right after that 3 hours, we were able to do this and do that and do the other. But I haven't heard of any such report. And if I hear of any such report, I'll look into it. Because maybe shaking hands and hugging all day long may be a solution to our problems. But I haven't seen any results of that yet that I can really say scientifically that actually does what some people claim that it will cause us to do. In fact, some people who do all this hugging and high-fiving wind up 9mm in each other, before the week is over. Some of the same people, so I haven't seen any proof that that's scientific. And so I say, if you just, as an individual person, See, if you're not doing one thing, you're doing something else. That's logic. That's the law of the universe. If you're not doing one thing, you're doing something else. So if I'm saying I haven't seen evidence that some things are not working, then what does work? Well, what works is you look at every situation and figure out the most constructive thing to do about that situation, because most situations have to do with a problem that you're looking at. And so I came to the conclusion when I started writing my book. First of all, what are we here for? We meaning who? Everybody on the planet. We're supposed to be here, according to the evidence, logically speaking, to solve problems. Why? Because we have problems. If we weren't supposed to have problems, we wouldn't have them. But we were created to solve problems, and we were given all kinds of equipment. Fingernails, toes, eyes, ears, a brain, a heart, kidneys. So we have a body, something called a body, that's put together that has a lot of first-class equipment. Now, the white supremacists believe that it's some kind of sport to go around killing off all of this first-class equipment, particularly if it's covered with black skin or dark skin, black, brown, red, yellow, beige, tan, people of color. And they think that that's fun. So they don't want to be universal man and universal woman. They just want to be race man and race woman. And racism of any kind belonging to a race doesn't have but one value, and that's to mistreat people based on color. That's all racism is. Racism and belonging to a race, meaning you have one purpose, and that is to dominate and mistreat people based on color or non-color, because that's what it's all about. That's what racism and race is all about. So black people never really joined a race. You have to join a race, all right? You have to say that you're going to dominate and mistreat people based on color or a lack thereof. That's what you're going to do all your, whatever you do about. And a whole number of white people in the past, based on evidence and on truth, which they admit to, decided that they were going to say, yon goes a person with color in his or her skin. And that gives me the right, and not only the right, but the duty to chase that person down and dominate that person and mistreat that person in all areas of activity forever if I choose to do so. And that became a thing called racism and or white supremacy.
All right. Thank you for laying that out for us. 800-450-7876, the number to call to speak to Neely Fuller Jr. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back. More of your questions right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. Our guest is Neely Fuller Jr. Coming up in the next few days, geopolitical analyst Craig T. Hewlett is going to be here. He's going to talk about the UK election. James is going to talk about Comey's also testimony and Trump and Putin. And, you get the gist of what Craig talks about. Also, Power Talker of this year, rapper, producer, actor David Banner is going to be here. He's got a new project he's going to share with us. David's going to be among the folks who will be with us on Friday, June the 23rd, Saturday, June the 24th, including Patricia Newton, Renoka Rashidi, Ray Wimbush, Claude Anderson, James Small, Leonard Jeffries, Rosalind Jeffries, Tony Browder, Umar Johnson, and Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory is going to receive the Dr. Francis Cress Welsing Freedom Fighter Award. For more information, go to PowerTalkSeries.com. Let's go back to our callers, to Neely Fuller Jr., and I'll let you respond to this call, and then if you can give us information how folks can get your book. So let's go to line 4. Marquise is calling us from Washington, D.C. Marquise, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr.
Yeah, I do. Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
I had a question. This system of white supremacy, if it's so great, why do I know, why white people that I know personally, why are they so broke and downtrodden, and most black people I know doing better than the white people I know? That's my question for.
Okay, fair question. Thanks, Marquise.
What I put in the book that's in the category of what you call white sacrifices. In other words, like any criminal enterprise, and white supremacy is a criminal enterprise, it's the real organized crime. You sacrifice some of your own members, like in any army. See, the system of white supremacy is an army operation. It's a military operation. And you already calculate you're going to lose quite a few of your own soldiers for a greater cause. That cause being the system of white supremacy. The white supremacists practically brag about that. You know, they call it sacrifice. They say, well, we have to make some sacrifices. It's good for business, you know. So they put a few white people out there, just like the caller, and I noticed it years ago. I saw barefoot white people and whatnot, and black people driving by them in limousines. You know, barefoot white people and black people riding by in a limousine. You know, some musician or something like that. But then I stopped and thought, this is a part of the system. So you'll have some white people who are throwaways. They don't want to be throwaways, but the other white people say, hey, it's good for business. We got to have the image of we are not racist. So this is how we do it. And it's done on a percentage basis, worldwide. See, it's not just what you're looking at the moment, when you might be on, you know, in a prominent place like some places like maybe some famous beach or resort or something like that. And you say, I see black people here dressed to the nines and spending money like it's going out of style. And then I go a few blocks away and I see some white people that don't have anything. Well, see, that's an illusion. That's not denying the fact of white supremacy worldwide. You have to keep in mind, this is a worldwide enterprise. So the white supremacists deliberately make white sacrifices. And it's a visual thing. For every white person you see sleeping on a park bench, you have millions who are doing quite well. But when you look at black people, considering the number of black people on the planet, or people of color, black, brown, red, yellow, and whatnot, what is the condition of most of them? So percentage-wise, they will make maybe in the future 10, 15, 30, 40 million zillionaires. I mean, among black people themselves, just among black people. And then they'll put their pictures all over the walls everywhere. Now, you can't remember the names, I can't, of maybe 100 black billionaires. I'm not talking about millionaires in 2017. I can't name 100, but it might be as many as 200 or 300. And there will be more. But compared to the ones that don't have a biscuit, there's no comparison. In other words, it's just like white supremacy is a business, and just like any other business, they have profits and they have losses. They don't mind the losses. In fact, they'll brag about the losses, have cemeteries where they blow horns and, you know, and march around and whatnot. And everybody dress up, talking about their losses. They don't mind that, you know, but they'll say, look at the profits that we have as a result of our losses. And look at the losses that we have inflicted on these people that we dominate. And what do they get out of this thing called white supremacy? What everybody wants. But they have an illegitimate way of getting it. And what are the things that everybody wants? They want fun, glory, and material comfort. Animals want that. Birds want that. Bees want that. Antelope want that. Fun, glory, and material comfort. 1, 2, 3. But the white supremacists who are in position now, with all their scientific knowledge and all like that, they could become universal man and universal woman and establish justice overnight. They're in position to do that. They can do it. They know how to do it. They know what justice is. They know how to not mistreat people. But they choose to be racist man and racist woman. They've gotten so used to it that when you even start proposing to them that they replace it with a system of justice, replace racism with a system of justice, they will give it lip service and they'll say it's a good idea, but my goodness, we're just not used to it. That's really what they're saying. I mean, a system of justice, yeah, we know we can do that. We're in position to do that, where nobody's mistreated and everybody who needs help gets it. But, you know, I won't get no fun out of that. That's why they worship killing. They taught black people to worship killing, even when they don't have to kill. I'm talking about killing people. This is why you go into a bookstore. As far back as I can remember, that's one of the first things I was taught, to glorify killing. To glorify killing. One of the first things I was taught in comic books. Comic books are supposed to be funny. But I was looking at all kinds of people, Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and Captain Marvel and all these people. And what were they doing? Spending full time, Batman, killing people. All right. Cowboys, more than anybody. And I used to sit on the front seat of the color theater, paying my little nickel, and my shoes run over. But I want to see what? I want to see people up on the screen called cowboys. People that herded cows and branded cows, chasing down people and killing them. And then there was another character called Tarzan. And he was swinging around on a vine, and he was yelling to the top of his voice. And all the people, thousands of them, with dark skins would tremble and say, "Oh, Tarzan, the king of the jungle," meaning he's my king too. Tarzan and Jane.
Right. Hold that though right there, because we're racing the clock, and I need you to, before I take another call for you, I need you to give out the information about your book, the title, and how people can pick it up.
You can get the book, the textbook for victims of white supremacy, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the textbook for victims of white supremacy, and also a word guide. Words are very important, which is an extension of the basic textbook and the method for ordering. That's go to producejustice.com. And the book, I want to reiterate this. The book is directed to individual persons because the concept, the logic is, if you solve the problem of each individual non-white person on the planet, you solve the problem of all non-white people on the planet. And it's written in such a way that it's written to the individual person, so it means you don't have to so-called physically, like herding together on a slave ship, like the white supremacists, they love that. You don't have to physically do anything except just tap into logic. Don't follow people, not even Neely Fuller. Don't follow Neely Fuller around the corner. Neely Fuller is not your mentor. Logic is your mentor, because that's all Neely Fuller is trying to follow. So you might as well follow what Neely Fuller is trying to follow. Logic. 1 and 1 is 2. Cause and effect. Things either work or they don't. That's all you have to tap into. The white supremacists have steered us away from that and told us to think with our emotions. And that doesn't work at all. It's not logical.
All right.
Tap
Let's see if we
into
get another
the
call for
logic
you.
of the universe.
800-450-7876. Go to Baltimore on line 2. Ernest is waiting. Ernest, you're on with Neely Fuller Jr. Make it quick for us.
Yeah. What I want to say is that most of the people that have a problem with what, in my opinion, have a problem with Bill Maher said, are the ones that, if you look them up on the internet and you look at their history and their bio, will fit that description of a house slave perfectly.
and they have been working against us for years, informants and all that. The other thing I would like to say is this. We have Elijah Cummings is sending black children from Maryland to Israel. Now, we know that the Ashkenazi Jews, white supremacists, racists, with the black people they have there, the Ethiopians and the people from the continent.
Put in a question for him, Ernest, because we got 2 minutes left.
Okay. Why would a black politician send black children to a racist apartheid country for a year?
All right, let's give him a chance to respond. I thank you, and thank you for being short. Neely Fuller Jr.?
Here again, Neely Fuller or anybody else who's classified as non-white in the system of white supremacy, you can expect me or any other non-white person to do something that should or should not be done, because we're all prisoners of war. And for whatever reason we do anything, we are the illegitimate children of the white supremacists. And we are all prisoners of war. They have made their own illegitimate children prisoners of war. They have made war on us. So we act like prisoners of war. And whatever we do that we shouldn't do, if it's something we shouldn't do, I'm not saying that what Mr. Elijah McCummins did should or should not be done. I cannot pass judgment on that, because whatever we do is a result of what the white supremacists want anyway, except putting them out of business. They don't want that. But I'm trying to...
Hold that thought right there, because we just flat out of time. And thank you again, Neely Fuller Jr., for the class. It's always interesting. Folks, we got to get out of here, but we want you to stay strong, stay positive, stay in the light. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power.